What's up, Rangers? Welcome to the Geek Chest. My name's Steve. Today I'm painting a dragon. Well, you guys will see wings here. I've already put my base colors on it, which was a really dark gray, specifically pavement. But one thing I'm actually going to try with this new one, with this new commission anyways, is I'm kind of wanting to upgrade the paint I use on these a bit, because for the most part, like, these work really good. But using brighter colors, I always seem to have problems with, especially when I'm doing nails. I always got to do multiple runs because the pigments in the paint just don't quite want to go on clean the first time, so you got to add layers, and it's a bit time consuming. So I'm gonna try some more higher end brands. Don't let the reduced price fool you. But what these are Liquitex. I've seen a few artists that do the same kind of things, paint figures, use this particular brand. So I kind of want to try it out of this. So what I'm doing is a Rathalos. We're going to make it the Silver Rathalos, or at least a variant of the silver. We're going to have a little fun with it, with the coloring. But primarily, the base coloring is going to be this dark gray, and a lot of that's going to be the inner details. And then we're going to be dry brushing colors over top of it. You'll notice some of these wings, there's a couple of spots that didn't maybe quite cover on stuff, but when you dry brush over top of it, it's not going to really matter that much. And then some of it's already kind of rubbing off, but again, I'm going to be dry brushing over top of it. It's not pervy that this base coat looks perfect, because I'm going to be going over top of the parts that, the areas that are most likely going to be rubbing off, or what I'm going to be repainting. And then we'll seal it after that. So that's why you see here I'm being a little rougher with it, because any part I really want to have this gray texturing on it, it's going to stay. But anyways, so I got some silver, which is actually, for the most part, they had the right colors that I wanted, because I wanted silver, but I didn't want it to be too flaky. And this looks like it'll be like a nice pearl finish. So grab that. Then we're going to be using a dark blue, which this one is Prussian blue hue, which looks pretty good. I might darken it up a little bit more, but that's about the coloring I want. And then a Mars black for highlighting the high points, even higher than the blue is going to be, because it's mainly going to be like silver on bottom, blue on top, and blacks for like the tip of the spikes and stuff like that. And then claws, what have you. Because the claws will probably do more like bird claws, kind of like what I do with a lot of the dinosaur figures. Anyways, so we're going to dry brush the silver on the wings. I'll show you essentially how I'm going to be painting this stuff. Then, usually with these videos, I don't usually do time lapses and stuff of me just painting it, because more or less I'm kind of showing, I just want to show you what I'm doing, because you guys will see the finished product at the end anyways. So, I'm going to start with the silver. We're going to dry brush the entire wing in silver. It would be the same thing for the most part with the bodies too. I don't really have to go super hard on the tops, but the bottom especially, grabbing one. Like here is its chest. This is going to be mainly like silver here on the bottom and dark blues on the top. So I only really have to dry brush the bottom, and then the top's going to be the blue. At least I got to double check before I get into the body. I'm going to have to double check the color scheme, but from what I can recall, that's pretty much about it. The wings are definitely pretty much all silver. It's all silver, and then a lot of the blues is going to be here on the skeletal parts of the wings. And then maybe like a little bit of blue. There's like a light blue in some areas, maybe like around the wing tips. But for the most part, the rest of it's going to be silver. So I'll show you guys how I'm going to be dry brushing on this, and then we'll move on. Alright, so I got my brush here. I'm going to take some of the silver. I don't think I got to try to mix this up, but I'm going to do it anyways. Alright, so usually I just use some extra little stuff I got laying around, put my paint in, because usually I buy a lot of toys, so I got a lot of plastic. So I kind of try to reuse these for the most part. So I got my little reservoir here. Just gonna, a little bit of silver. Don't want to go too crazy, because again, I don't really mess with this stuff too much. But when dry brushing, you get a little bit on the brush, and then you just want to kind of wipe off as much as you can. So on the brush here, you'll notice I only got a little bit. Then I'm going to take the wing, kind of go at an angle, because I want to try to keep the brush strokes out of the inner details as much as possible. And then just start applying it on. And you'll see, because I'm doing it this way, you can still see the dark gray undertones. Now, I might go back over it, because usually when I dry brush, sometimes I go over these areas multiple times, just to really get the color I want to pop out. But I'm hoping, because I'm using this higher quality paint, that I shouldn't have to do that as much, because especially with some of the full art's not as bad, but especially like Apple Barrel, because it's the same company, but just a cheaper product. So I usually, with that stuff, outside of the dark colors, usually gives me a little bit more of a fit, and that's why I gotta use multiple layers. But again, not gonna really focus too much on getting the metallic part, but still gonna get it on there anyways. The silver's gonna look pretty nice. I will say, to be honest, I might be able to actually keep a little bit more paint on the brush, because I kind of want it to go on a little thicker. There we go. Again, just make sure when you're brushing to kind of go at an angle, because I kind of want to just like swipe over the high points. I don't want to get into the indents if I can help it. Because just to kind of show you, if I got a lot of paint on here, see it kind of glops in these areas right here. I don't want that to happen, so gotta try to get much of it off as I can, so then I can just brush it through. Also, the acrylics, don't be afraid to get any paint on your hands, because it washes off pretty easy. It's one thing I've definitely gotten accustomed to doing these customs is you tend to wash your hands a lot. It's just, if you're gonna get messy, just have fun with it. Ooh, that's a nice shine to that. Kind of want it to be a little brighter. But that was a nice reflection, if I do say so. So, what I'm going to do here is I got to go through and do this to all the wings. And again, like you see right now, I already pretty much got all the high points, but I'm just kind of trying to make it more silver in coloring, because especially when you're dry brushing, because you're trying not to put on a lot of paint ain't going to go on, so you'll have to do it in layers. You could also use a hair dryer. Make sure to dry all the points so that when you're going back over it, it definitely is hitting a little more. Also, generally I try to go in the same direction, but if I want to try to hit more angles, I'll sometimes come at it at a different angle, just to make sure I'm kind of getting all the points. Because going in the one direction, I wasn't really getting these edges here, but now I'm hitting that a little better. So I definitely want quite a bit of the gray to show through, but I would like it to be more silver than anything. Alright, I'll cut it here. I'll come back once I get everything, all the rest of the wings set up, and then I'll show you how I'm going to be applying the blue on. Alright, just kind of show you guys what I'm doing here. I already silvered up some of the Rathalos here. This part I'm not too concerned about, because you can see it's still a little red, but you're never going to see it unless you actually tear the thing apart. I always forget to meet this thing. But you can see I have the neck pieces all separated. The head has been removed. Currently what I'm doing, I'll zoom it in. is that I'm just trying to clean up some of the spots that I missed initially doing my primering for the base coat for the Rathalos. So, because these sections here, I'm trying to get it to where I don't have to tear these apart, because especially with these little pegs here, it can be fragile. So, I have it torn. So, I'm just trying to get every little nook and cranny that I can that could possibly be visible without removing the thing. And then, as I do this, I'll finish, I'll paint the section, I'll seal it, I'll show you guys how I'm going to be sealing each individual part, and then when I'm all done painting, I'll seal the entire figure a little more properly. But for now, I'm just trying to get enough on here that you won't notice anything. But yeah, I'm not sure how sturdy this paint is from initial trials. It actually seems pretty sturdy. Like, fairly scratch resistant. Like, I'm rubbing my thumb over this thing and that paint ain't coming off, so I'm almost not too worried about it. Because with this paint, arguably it looks about the same, but the resistance isn't there, which is what I use for the base coat. So it will scuff off on these parts. So I'm half tempted to just kind of like dry brush the inside, because then I'll get the high points, and then I could just seal it once instead of having to sit here and reseal like I usually do. But we'll test it out. We'll see how it goes. It's like I mentioned, to be fair, if the silver is pretty durable, the gray under here wouldn't really matter much, because even if it does come off fairly easy, it's not the part that's going to be rubbing. Because you can kind of see right here, I got to do a little bit more primering around the edges here, just to get the nooks and crannies a bit. One thing I did notice though with this paint is it doesn't dry as fast. Like, the nice thing about this is I could like paint, hair dry, good, paint, hair dry, good. This, I gotta give it a little bit more time. So while this paint seems to be a little more durable, it's definitely a little more time consuming, because I can just... And it's dry. So, well, this, it's fairly dry now, but it's still, there's a little tack to it. Because I'm dry brushing, it's not gonna remove, and there's not a lot of paint on it for it to have to take long to cure. But again, still something to take into consideration. But I think we're gonna try using that silver in these crevices. I'm gonna see how that kind of does me as a base coat. Hopefully, because this paint seems like, again, it's pretty durable. Like, I'll still have to seal this properly, but I won't have to go super hard with using the super glue technique, because if I gotta use a super glue technique, that gets a bit costly, especially on a larger figure. So I want to, personal reasons, try to mitigate using that stuff as little as possible if I can, because I like to try to keep the cost of these figures down. Because even for like something like this, I probably should have charged more. I'm not gonna release what I requested, but for how much time I invested in these things, because this guy's probably gonna be a good 5-6 hours worth of painting. Plus I have to disassemble, repaint, what have you. It's a lot of time, and minimum wage keeps going up, so it doesn't even come to the effect cost of the paint and supplies. But if you do plan on doing something like this, that's one thing to take into consideration if you want to kind of do this for a living, how much this stuff's going to actually cost you to do. Because, for instance, I really like this paint. This paint actually is working really well on this. And, yeah, that seems pretty damn durable. Alright, so that's cool. But, like, see right here, it costs $6 for one of these. Now granted, am I going to use this entire bottle on this figure? Probably not. But, still, over time, it could factor in, like, you're thinking you're not gonna be, trying to think of the best way of, I'm starting to think of what I'm trying to get across here. You don't really think about the cost of your brushes and stuff when you're working on these items until everything, like, you go to pick up supplies and you're like, man, I just spent how much I charged on this one figure to get supplies for the month. Thankfully, like, brushes aren't super expensive though. Like, I really like these ones personally. You can pick them up at Walmart for like $5 for a lot of them, and especially on my giant monster stuff, I primarily use a lot of the really flat brushes here. I usually use something kind of bristly if I need to put like a base coat on, kind of like what I did for the gray here, because you want to get in all the nooks and crannies. And then just something with a small tip to it for doing eyes and detailing. Don't usually need a wide variety, but you want at least a few, especially like different sizes of these, depending on how big the monster is, or dinosaur, or whatever you're wanting to paint. I will state that this silver looks freaking baller on this. Because initially, when trying to do the paint for this guy, I wanted it to look more, because in the game, I know it's a little bit brighter with the silvering, like it's almost like a whitish color. But I really wanted this guy to actually look like silver you'd find out in the wild, so that, like, it's got a little bit more of like an organic look to it instead of just like shiny dragon. Like, it's got a little bit more like real world tangibleness to it. But I know I'm not going to show you guys everything I'm doing here, but I at least want to show you guys kind of like what the base coloring is for these, for the dragon. Because like I did the wings already. You guys can see here, which turned out great, and I gotta start adding all the blues to it. But for the parts you gotta tear apart, this is kind of what I gotta go through in order to reassemble. Because the nice thing about NECAs is I don't usually have to really take them apart too much. There's a couple I've had to, but for the most part, I can usually get away with just painting them and calling it a day. Like, I can paint, move the joint, seal it. Paint, move the joint, seal it. Man, I wish I would have gotten this paint more often, because I was, I know, like I seen the Dave Silva, the guy who does the Beast of the Mesozoic, he uses this kind of paint, but he uses a heavy body. The heavy body wasn't quite available for me outside of just straight up ordering the stuff. So I decided to go with this paint, just because it's a little bit more readily available. And with like this kind of stuff, I don't usually need something that does like a great amount of coverage, because usually, especially with Godzilla's and such, the primer kind of covers a lot, and then it's just dry brush, dry brush, dry brush, dry brush, except for spines or what have you. So that like the paint doesn't have to cover that well. So I can usually, like I said, I can usually get away with this as long as it's sealed properly. But it's a nice little change of pace, though. Like, pretty much when this guy's on, he's gonna look like a statue, like an old silver statue. I don't really gotta be super clean with the initial coloring. When I do the blues on them and the blacks, I'll be using a smaller brush because I want to definitely focus on certain sections. Like, a lot of his blues are going to be where the spikes are. And then some blacks here and there for the high bits. Now, Now, one thing you might be asking is, why am I not airbrushing this? For the MonsterArts, everything, essentially, all the detailing was airbrushed. Even the stripes on it weren't super clean. And a lot of that's just time saving on their end. But if I airbrush this, you wouldn't see a lot of the really nice detailing here, because the silver would just fill everything when I go to put it on. That's not that's not usually how you see something in real life. Even like with the dinosaurs and a lot of the higher end models, like especially on figures, there's usually a lot of depth to the coloring, which I think MonsterArts does a good job of. Like, to be honest, for how much they charge for this thing, I couldn't really complain too much about the way the color looked on it. But again, something like this, even just leaving it like this and painting the eyes would look, actually it would look really sweet. But we're definitely again gonna be adding some color contrast. But it just doesn't look as organic as it probably could, which is kind of the look I'm going for. So I gotta let this stuff cure a bit, but then we'll start adding the blues to it. Once I add the blues, I can assemble it, because the blacks are only going to be on the parts that you're going to actually see. Oh, actually I gotta add some silver to this thing. I got a little ahead of myself. I added some blue, as you can see here. I'm just pretty much with the neck pieces, I'm kind of just trying to flow along with it. For the most part, it looks like it's pretty much just on the back spikes here, so I'm trying to keep it within that section here. On the top, same thing with this next piece here. Just kind of get my brush in there and bring it forward. Man, that's looking cool, if I do say so. I gotta let the paint finish curing here. Just kind of want to show you essentially the process. I'm just going to be doing this, let it dry, attach the parts, do this, let it dry, attach the parts, and then once that's all said and done, because once this dries, then it'll be a lot more posable. But here's the back plates for this, so that'll be here. And like I mentioned, the blacks I don't have to worry about quite as much, because I don't have to do these anything that's going to be hidden, so I only have the high points that you're actually going to notice. So that's all I'm really focusing on. But just keep apply my dry brush. So once I get all the blue on all the parts, we'll cut back and then start showing off how I'm going to be doing all the detailing work. Alright, so as you can see, Dragon is majority-wise put together. Rawr. I got it all majority-wise sealed up, all the parts I need to do, but I just want to show you guys exactly what I'm doing here. So what I have here is the right leg. You notice here the top's a little glossy. I think I got the right leg, right? Right leg. Alright, cool. And the inside of this one I've already done. It's the left leg I haven't done yet. And what I'm doing here is parts that are going to have a lot of contact from rubbing with the figure. I'm putting super glue over top of this with a accelerant so that it hardens really quick. So then I could just like paint it, spray it, move on, give it a couple seconds, move on with my life. It's like this one I've already done. So the inside you might notice a little bit of a shine to it. Same with on the outside. Now, I don't want the figure glossy, and that's kind of what happens if you're going to be using this, but when I go to put my finish over top of it, it'll knock the shine off of it, because I'll probably be doing a matte finish over this, so that'll remove any of this that's going to be noticeable anyways. So, I already did this top part, so next I just start doing the parts I got to assemble. So what I got, a little cup, a little plastic cup, got some glue. I put it on top of my little plastic cup, just kind of make a little pool. And then what I've been using are these very cheap brushes. Usually like Walmart, Hobby Lobby, places like that, you can get them for pretty cheap. Sadly, the colored ones were like $3 and the only ones I could find. I know my black ones I get at Walmart are usually like 99 cents for a bag, which they do the trick nicely. These ones are actually a little nicer than those, so I see why they're a little more expensive, but they, like, I'm only going to get a minute, maybe, if I'm lucky, to do this real quick, which is why I only really use this technique for like claws and teeth and parts that are going to have a lot of contact, because I'm going to go through these pretty quick. But anyways, so get a little bit of paint on here. I'm not worried about as much, or glue, I'm not worried as much on the inside on this part, but I definitely want to get the outer edges here. Get a nice coating. I don't. You don't have to worry about getting like the glue into every nook and cranny, because just like I mentioned with the paint, it's only gonna really rub on the high points, and that's where the paint's gonna come off. So you only really need to get the glue over top of that section in order to keep those parts from rubbing off. I will come back in a second to do those. It's kind of still slightly loose toe, but that's fine. Alright, so I just gotta do the same to the other side. He'll be assembled. Then we can start doing all the touch-up works. Alright, so on to the next portion of painting this guy. Right now I'm just gonna be taking some blacks, and what I'm gonna do is be kind of just highlighting a lot of the crest here, especially on the side of the head here, and then coming along the back here. Kind of just going off some photos, screenshots that I took on here, for what's gonna have the blacks on them, which is mainly just gonna be a lot of things. It's mainly like the center I'm probably gonna keep blue, but on his eyebrows, especially coming along here, we're gonna be adding some of the blacks to it. So just a little bit here and there. Outside of that, there isn't really too much else to really talk about. Kind of looking at it, I don't really want to get too much on the under section here, which I just realized I already screwed that up. So I'll have to go back over this portion here, probably a little bit of silver. That'll be fine. Again, like I mentioned with these videos a lot of the times, don't be too upset if you mess up on something while you're painting. It's bound to happen. Also, you guys might notice, but I use a lot of random stuff I got laying around to paint these things. But use a little bit of black on his eyebrows. And then just kind of go lightly over some of the sections, just highlight some of the blacks on it. But it's pretty simple stuff for the most part. I want to keep some of the blue on the lower section here. There's a little goatee spike here, needs some black on it. A lot of the horns, I'll show you, I'll come back. Be a little easier to hold it. Woo, there it goes. Yeah, it's fine. I was thinking about actually popping these off for a minute anyways till I get to that section. Some of the wings I'm gonna have to fix up anyways, but just gonna kind of highlight some of these sections with the black. This is lost my train of thought. We were painting this thing, weren't we? I try not to keep a lot of black on my brush though. I'm more or less just kind of not quite dry brushing, like I want a decent amount of, a little bit of black on my brush, but not crazy enough that it's going to leave a bunch of residue everywhere. Kind of highlight a lot of the spikes on here with the black, because it looks like for the most part his center should be staying blue for the most part. The big crest here, but a lot of the around sections I want to try to get with some black highlights on them. Kind of keep just going down the back here. Though it looks like the actual back has a lot more of the highlights. But essentially, if you see a spike, I'm going to be adding some black to it. Kind of like so. Just working on the back of his neck. We're going to let's go over each of these little sections. So I'll cut back. We'll do all the blacks on here. I'll get the blacks on the spiky bits here too on the wings, and then I'll show you guys how I'm going to be doing the claws. But essentially, best thing I can say is if you want to do a quick version of this, you see a high point, just add black to it. The center head, I'm going to kind of keep the way it is, but anywhere around otherwise is going to have some black added to it. So come back in a bit once we get to a new color. Alright, so real quick, got all the black on them. As you guys can see, I got the under section all done too. Started doing his nails with the light gray dry brushing over top just to kind of highlight the detailing, because I'm trying to make them look more like bird claws in a way. So we're going to do the same thing for these ones too down here. Just get a little bit of paint on my brush. Just kind of go at it at an angle. Just give them a little bit of highlighting. Nothing too crazy. But like when you see like eagle claws and stuff in the wild, they got a little extra great coloring to them. And it kind of looks scratchy. So having minimal paint on there is actually going to kind of help to highlight everything too. I'm going to add it to the stinger because it kind of looks like a claw. So why not? Yeah, there we go. Got our eagle tailing-ish looking claws. Alright, so pretty much one thing I did without you guys here is I did the eyes. He wanted them done in a more stream pattern. Done plenty of eyes on the channel, but these ones just kind of elongated the paint out a little bit. But finally, I'm going to touch up a little bit of the blues on here just to make them a little more consistent, and then we'll add the striping, which will be in a little bit because I'll have to let it harden before I can really get to adding all the black lining to it. That looks a little better. A little more blue next to each other. Alright, so I'm going to let it dry, and then we'll start adding all of the lightning bolts striping pattern for the wings, because I'm going to change them up a little bit than what we had originally, just because I think it'll look a little more gnarly. I'll also add a little bit of blacks around the edges here of the wing tips too, if you guys were wondering. We gotta touch up the inside of the mouth a little bit. So it did get a little bit of grays in certain sections. Definitely tell in the back of the throat, which I don't know how I did that, but I did. I'm gonna have to add some coloring, so we're gonna need like a dark red for the tops, which I do have sitting right here. Alright, so for the red for the inside of the mouth, I'm just gonna dry brush over top, just to kind of hide what I do, my little crime. Hide a bit of the grays, because a lot of it's just surface texturing. So that'll define the inside of the mouth a little bit, while also hiding that little section. Next, we're going to do the teeth with this parchment coloring, which looks way grayer than I thought it was gonna, but we'll see. Each time I do teeth, I gotta come back through and touch up usually around the lips a bit, because I'll admit I don't have quite the steadiest hands for this, even doing this, because I tend to try to prop my hands up on a couple of things. So I have my forearms on the table, I got part of my hand resting on the toy that I'm painting. And trust me, I still make some mistakes here and there. I will say I am really liking this paint though. It's got really nice coverage. Because usually, like, if I use the folk arts, and especially the apple barrel paints, they usually take a bit of cut. Like, you gotta usually do a few layers. This, like, I might add some yellow over top of it just to give it a bit of texturing. Well, not texturing, but just like color variety. Make it look like he's eating some things, you know. But even like with just this minimal amount of paint on here, like, it's covered pretty well. Pretty much for the bottom teeth, you don't really gotta get too fancy with these because they don't really rise that high above the jawline. So for the most part, you just gotta get a little bit of paint on the top. You can pretty much call it a day. That's essentially how, like, a lot of the manufactured toys you would see would be done anyways. Oops, right, got another spot I gotta fix up. I do gotta go back over a little bit of black because I see on the inside of the jaw there's a part of the original skin still peeking through, so I gotta make sure I fix that. Got a little bit of tartar. Alright, that's pretty much it for that. Gonna touch up a little bit of the blacks here and there inside the mouth just to clean up a couple of my edges, and then I'll cut back to once we are ready to do all the sculpting for the wings. Well, not sculpting, the coloring.
Alright, so just as an editor's note, I can't find the footage of me painting the detailings on the wings, so my apologies for that. Not sure where it went on my computer. I think I probably deleted it, if I'm gonna be honest. If you guys want to replicate it, just go ham. The only thing I recommend when you're painting it is just use a nice black paint, and then you're going to want a couple of different sizes of brushes in order to make your little streams coming off of the detailing. So you'll start with like a decently thick brush for your main bulk of the body of the striping, and then for your parts that you're coming off with, you want a thinner brush in order to make thinner streams, essentially.
And here's the completed Rathalos. Overall, really pleased with the way that this guy turned out. With the metallic silver here for the wings, you guys can see the patterns for the undersection here, done in some, it's kind of like stripey, like veiny, lightning look for both of the wings. On the back, I kept them a little bit more plainer looking, as you guys can see. But the blues turned out really nice. Got the same thing going on for the wing, or for the back here. You can see all the scaled sections look really good with the blacks for the tips of the pointy bits. Same with on the tail here. All the claws, all the lifted edges. Looking nice. Same with on the front of the legs. As it will claws on his toes. Add a little bit of black here for the chest region, just because it shows up like that a little bit in the video game, so I wanted to replicate that a little bit. And then the undersection of the tail, it's got a little black line coming down, and then more detailing. And then you guys can see, I got to pop that up a little bit so I can get the mouth open. There we go. But you guys can see, touched up the mouth a little bit, same with the teeth. And then for his eyes, he's got a little bit of that like fiery electric look to it, which was a request to have that done. And then got the larger wings too here. These guys are all set. And he is good to go, so he'll be shipping out here in the morning. And I can finally move on to some other commissions. This guy was a super fun one. It's kind of nice not doing Godzilla stuff all the time. And was definitely a very unique request for us, because this would definitely be the first dragon type character that I've fully have redone. And overall, really pleased with the way it turns out. I love the way the metallic silver looks. The blue looks nice. The varying degrees of blue on the guy definitely helped the lend to the overall realistic look. And yeah, kind of makes me want to do one for myself, but that'd be for another time. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. So help us defeat those guys just by hitting that like button, subscribe, become a ranger today. We also got Instagram, Patreon, Pinterest, Facebook. Guys, look you up with the new channel. Donate. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next video. Bye-bye.